Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are in Gorgazon playing as the forces of the Beastmen against the forces of the Greenskins. And for this matchup, I wanted to try out something different. That was a very rush-centric strat to match the Greenskins in a straight-up manner, which is one of those things that's very difficult to pull off. Greenskins, of course, with the WoW are incredibly potent on the charge. They can get a good sort of alpha strike, and from then on out they usually have enough of an edge to win out. But I decided that I figured if I clump up enough Minotaurs in just one and do a normal Minnow boss, and then stack that on some Razorgore herd and have just a few Ungor spears to soak up some hits, then it might just work out. We might be able to just tank through WoW for a little bit and then overrun my opponent, sort of from one point to another, moving through and murderizing his troops. So that's what this build is all about. For my lord, I'm rolling with Morgr just because he's a safety pick. Not much to be said there. He does have, of course, Cult to Violence for that extra leadership. He's got Stave of Ruinous Corruption as well as Spirit of Essence of Chaos to get those double summons of Chaos Spawn. And especially against Greenskins, who tend to have pretty bad melee stats on their lords, he's not a bad combatant. He definitely can hold his own. Alongside him, simply a horde of Ungor Spearmen. Not much to be said for these guys. They're just there to soak up the hits for the Minotaurs. The main strike force is this whole mobile contingent. There are two Brave Shamans, one of them of Death, one of them of Shadows. He's got Melkos, Miasma, and Enfeebling Foe, as well as the Jagged Dagger. On the other side, the Brave Shaman of Death does have Doom and Darkness to potentially do some terror bombing, Spirit Leech, Life Leeching, as well as the Jagged Dagger. All very potent abilities, giving him some extra winds of magic. Potentially, these guys can also help run over enemy infantry, while the Minotaurs can deal with bigger threats, such as trolls, for example, spiders, or units like that. Behind them, we do have 4 units of Razorgore herd, and there's not much to be said for these guys, but they can do a decent amount of damage on the charge. They've got a fairly hefty charge bonus of 46, high weapon strength at 52. I do believe some splash damage and surprising amounts of HP. So before they go down, they can definitely do a good bit of hurt to basically any target. And I figured we're just gonna fire them off and let them do work. And these ugly Baconators here with their club tails are definitely, hopefully, gonna be delivering some damage. Finally, we do have a single unit of Centaurs because I figured something is a zone away. Skirmish Cav could be decent, and unfortunately we just didn't have much money left over. The Butchers of Kalkengard, of course, useful for that terror effect and the regen, but they also do take up a lot of money here, so that's a bit of an issue. Now for my opponent, he does have a bit of a haggard composition, definitely a bit of a mixed bag. He's got Azag, who is definitely not bad, and unfortunately he's going to be quite the nuisance against all my troops because he does have Spirit Leech. So he's only brought Spirit Leech as well as the Life Leeching. He also has Get On With It for the extra leadership, very great for Greenskins, Foe Seeker, as well as Wa. And of course, mounted on Skull Muncher, he's going to have uncontestable mobility. He's really going to be pretty damn solid and able to strike basically wherever he wants, deliver some crushing blows, and just be a general pain in the rear. But we are going to counter Spirit Leech with Spirit Leech here and start whittling him down. In the meantime, for my opponent, he does have 3 units of Goblin Wolf Rider Archers here who are just harrying my poor Centaurs who can't catch them. Besides that, it's simply a front line of Goblin Spears, Orc Boys, more Goblin Spears, some Savage Orc Big Guns to deliver some melee punch, the Broken Tusk Mob for some anti-large, an Arachnarok Queen for her summons as well as the anti-large effect. Definitely a big threat to the Minotaurs here, even though the AP is kind of wasted against them. And a Goblin Big Boss on a Spider to deliver some additional poison. Finally, there are 2 Trolls who I think are a bit of an iffy pick here. I'm not sure I'd say they're good against Beastmen. They can definitely tie up, say, Butchers or Minotaurs pretty effectively, but ultimately I'm pretty sure Minotaurs will just crump them pretty hard. Minotaurs have some really solid melee stats, especially the Shielded Dragon. So regardless, we are going to immediately go for the Alpha Strike here on the Goblins. You can see I'm throwing my Ungor Spears here into the fray, into a situation where they have no chance of winning, but I really don't care. I'm simply looking to buy time here, throwing my Ungor Spears into miserable fights against Broken Tusk Mob, against Orc Boys, and yeah, they're going to lose. They're going to suck. Wa's going to go off, and it's going to be devastating. But in the meantime, the Razorgores have dove in here, tied down the Savage Orc Big Guns, and in comes the sweeping flank. The Minotaurs are rolling around alongside the Chariot of Death and just demolishing these guys. We actually hit them with the Doom and Darkness there to complete the rout, and these Savage Orc Big Guns are in for a horrible time, getting pursued off the field by those very angry Baconators. In the meantime, Morgr here is tying down these Orc Boys, doing some work. Unfortunately, my Brave Shaman of Shadows, a huge misplay here on my part, largely gets squandered. And this was just a huge misplay, something I should not have done. I should have had my Brave Shaman playing over here with the Brave Shaman Death, but instead he wasn't. And because of that, Azag's going to get some cheeky dives here. And alongside his Troll buddies, he's actually going to bring this poor guy down. The Brave Shamans have very bad melee stats, so if you have AP to get past the 80 armor on the Chariots, they don't last very long at all. That said, the snowball effect is definitely going from my flank inward. Well, my opponent here has 1 on this flank. The problem is I sacrificed very little. So if we talk about trades here, yeah, I lost 700 of Centaurs, I lost some Ungors, but I've already managed to remove these Goblins, I've managed to remove these Savage Orc Big Guns and these Orc Boys, and I've just kind of piled through. So I've gotten more of an edge from that fight than my opponent has. And you can see the Ragnarok here actually taking some meaty hits from the Razor Gores, which you wouldn't expect, but these guys do hit pretty hard on the charge. So the Ragnarok is starting to bleed HP. Morgar is in here tying things down. The Razor Gores are in there, hitting pretty hard. Keep in mind, Broken Tusk Mob, Orc War Webbing has a pretty atrocious melee stat, so they tend to get hit a lot. And now the Minnow Bus is in there, and it is demolishing these guys' face, really plowing through them. The Razor Gores are soaking a lot of the damage here. The spears are gone, but it doesn't matter. Meantime, you can see the Razor Gores over here pursued most of these savages off the field. My opponent is using Azag to chase the Bray Shaman away. Not a bad move, of course, because Azag is able to get back into the fray pretty quickly, but in the meantime, he's getting dumpstered here. And you can see we've actually killed another unit there, gotten the spawn off. So now we've got 2 units of spawn surrounding these bad boys, and trolls do not like the rear charge. They've got no support. Azag with Get On with it could be huge here. He could be delivering that leadership buff, keeping these trolls in the fight, but he does not here. That means they're getting destroyed. They actually get terrorized by the Butchers of Kalkengard, and things are looking very grim. And keep in mind, Chaos Spawn with that monstrous weapon strength just destroy trolls. This is one of the few units where Chaos Spawn will actually do pretty well against, and that weapon strength against 40 armor is going to be huge. Baconators in the meantime collapsing, and yeah, my opponent's getting Spirit Leeches off. He's melting. I'm not even sure what he's hitting there with his Spirit Leech. Or I'm hitting... Was I hitting something there? Maybe I was hitting the Broken Tusk Mob with the Spirit Leech. Not even sure. But Spirit Leeches have been cast all around. At this point, I don't have much use for my Bray Shaman of Death besides Spirit Leech spam, so that's kind of what I'm using it for. And seeing Azag coming in for another pass, we're actually going to pull away, because I don't want to get jumped on by Skullmuncha. And we can see here we actually shatter these trolls, which is a big win. This other unit of trolls is getting demolished. My opponent is starting to lose out here. He's down to about 60-40 on the balance of power. The trolls getting destroyed. They've lost a lot of their models. You can see they're actually losing multiple models here on the retreat path, down to 7 at this point. So half strength. Definitely some devastating stuff. And now the Goblin Big Boss is trying to jump in. The Savage Orc Big Gun is trying to get in. But it's just not enough, and they're getting overwhelmed. Then obviously do keep in mind, eventually the Chaos Spawn is going to die off. It's evaporating right now. It just falls apart there. The second unit is long gone. But in that fight, the Ragnarok Queen has gotten pounded. You can see the Razor Gores surrounding her, getting those rear attacks on her, doing some damage. Those fat pigs are definitely doing some work. Some of them are unfortunately routing, but Cult of Violence is keeping a lot of them in the fight, and the Queen is forced to flee. And now my opponent is in a bit of a pickle because, yeah, he chased off most of my infantry, but at this point he's down to trolls that are wavering and on the verge of collapse, half strength. A bunch of Goblin Wolf Rider archers who are soon going to run out of ammo, and most of their ammo is going to be wasted. Minotaur with the shields have silver shields and 45 armor that don't really give a damn. And, yeah, there are still some Ungor spears rallying around. Morgar is going to keep things in the fight here. And my opponent doesn't really have the tools to fall back on, and it's definitely brutal. He can try to get in there with Azag, but Azag's been getting Spirit Leech this whole time. He can't really dive in with Azag. He tries to do anything funny with Azag, he is getting jumped on by Minotaurs. And your odds of getting away if you're getting surrounded by Minotaurs are pretty low. I'll put it that way. Spirit Leech does go down on Bray Shaman, but immediately we're countering, so we're hitting back every time with Spirit Leech. Obviously, my opponent can probably win the Spirit Leech war, but it's not cost effective for him. Azag is a much more expensive investment. He's my opponent's lord. If my opponent loses his lord here, he's going to suffer a lot more than I will from losing a single caster who's already running low on his magic. In the meantime, these spiders are going to dive in here. You can see, you know, the Minotaurs do take some damage here. The simple fact is they're going to dive in here, they're going to clobber these spider hatchlings, immediately force a rout, they get terror routed. The trolls try to get in there to help, but Minotaurs are such a potent force, an unstoppable object, and they're just able to destroy these guys. And these trolls just get dumpstered. Just look at how fast the Minotaurs turn them to mush. Minnobus is such a strong strategy, guys. So the trolls are gone. Azak tries to dive in. He's trying to get in there and help, but Morgar's swing comes around swinging. The Goblin Big Boss and the Broken Tusk Mob is swinging around now, trying to get in on a pincer. The Ragnarok Queen is, of course, in there as well, and that is one risk you always have to be wary of. Minotaurs, immune to psychology, but still they are definitely under some sort of pressure. You got to be wary of leadership bombs against them. Azag Spirit Leeching trading here with the Bray Shaman of Death once again, which is just brutal because Azag is definitely starting to lose out here. Now he does get in here, he gets a nice cheeky ram on the Bray Shaman, brings him down. So, you know, sucks. It happens. Bray Shaman's gone. He goes down there to the Broken Tusk Mob, but that is kind of the last straw. The Broken Tusk Mob, they're getting smushed down to 5 models and routing. Savage Orc Big Gun's getting in there with 25 models, but, you know, they're not going to be able to hold. They're very low on HP at this point. The Minotaurs hit like trucks. They've got very high melee defense. 46 is huge. Terror kicks in, and my opponent is starting to feel the hurt. Now, obviously, I've lost most of my Razor Gores, but the Minnow Bus is still very strong. These guys sitting at 3,800 HP. These guys at 3,800 as well. Very few models lost overall. Butcher's still sitting at 12. The Queen trying to help out here, but you can see the supporting Wolf Riders are gone. Now, obviously, the Wolf Riders aren't going to do a lot of damage, but they are helping prevent the Ragnarok Queen from getting sniped out. You can see Spirit Leech goes down the Minotaurs at this point, probably the best bet, because quite frankly, Morgar is not going to go down. has the regen, so he doesn't really give a crap. The Goblin Big Boss getting overwhelmed by goblins, and at this point, it's a bit of a pit fight here as the Spider Queen is simply getting overwhelmed. Now, there's a whole bunch of cav in here. You can see the Minotaurs just towering over these poor little goblins who are trying to use their little sabers, but man, Minotaur is just brutal. The cow herd is in here. They don't really give a damn. They've got such high melee defense, such good melee attack. Terror, of course, is going to keep them in the fight here. Azag tries to get in here, get his troops, keep his troops in the fight. Ragnarok Queen getting pounded down to 3,000 HP. And as this support gets removed, as these Goblin Wolf Rider archers rout, as the Spider Hatchlings rout, fact of the matter is, the Butchers of Kalkengard are still standing. Morgr is still standing. My opponent is running out of options. Azag actually dives into these Ungor Spears here, but they actually hold for a split second. They're actually going to get some jabs in. Keep in mind, he's got terrible melee defense of 24. He actually routs. He gets broken by Ungor Spears here. Seconds before these guys do, or they tear out. Maybe they don't tear out. I thought they could have sworn they tear out. But Azag breaks, shatters, and that is going to be game for my opponent as his army buckles under pressure. So, the Minnow Bus pushing in strong and just destroying the Orcs. And this is, I think, a viable strat. Now, normally I find that what I do in this matchup is I kind of play the kite game. I bring Centaurs with great throwing axes, a bunch of Centaurs, maybe a Cygor even, and like just pick away at my opponent. Play a camping game. Use chariots to break apart his infantry. And that's kind of what we did here a little bit with the chariot play for sure. But the main key here was just the Minnow Bus. And you get him in there, and yes, your opponent's going to get a WA off. But he's not likely to get more than like 1 or 2 units on your Minotaurs before the WA expires. And once that WA is gone, Minotaurs are forced to be reckoned with. It doesn't help my opponent that because I've got such a small condensed army, Azag can't land anywhere to recharge his WA safely. If he dives in anywhere near my... Once these Ungors broke, once these peripheral troops were gone, all of the fighting was happening within a tiny radius where the Minotaurs were constantly able to jump on it. And yes, he did eventually get like a cheeky pick on a Brave Shaman, but that's not a reliable way that you can use Azag to recharge WA. So that entire time, when Azag's being denied WA, the Minnow Bus is rolling through troops, and Minotaurs, pound for pound, are one of, if not the best infantry or monsters infantry in the game. Honestly, they probably, in my opinion, Minotaurs with shields might be the best, pound for pound. I'd say they're arguably better than Fimir. And Fimir are very strong. Now, Fimir do have some potential to be broken just because of their high armor and their armor sundering. But I think Minotaurs, just because of how much damage they can dish out on their own, and just because of how overwhelming they can be, just because of how high their melee defense is with shields, just because of how quickly they can move. They're very nippy melee squad. They've got, I think, 63 or something, or 70 speed, something like that. They hit some ridiculous mobility when they've got Blood 3 going, and they crush units. And you saw in that game, Savage Orc Big Guns got overwhelmed. Orc Boys, the Goblins, basically 3 units got destroyed within the space of a few seconds, and my opponent got some cheeky picks. He did pick off a Shaman, he picked off the Centaurs, he picked off some Ungors. Yeah, he got some good picks there. But in the meantime, his trolls were getting dumb. He lost an entire flank, and a much more important flank. Lost much more valuable units that he needed in the long run. He ended up with this monstrous infantry blob that could not stand up to the tide. Azag got distracted chasing a Shaman off the field, which really should not have happened, in my opinion. He needed to be in that fight, keeping the trolls there. And it came out in Beastmen's favor, so... Definitely a fun strat. We'll put to Arcturus here. My main critique... Well, a few critiques. One, I don't think trolls are worth it in this matchup. If your opponent brings Minotaurs, honestly... As long as you overwhelm their line with Savage Orc Big Guns, the supporting troops, Minotaurs can't stand up to Savage Orc Big Guns. Especially... Yeah, those are just simple facts. Savage Orc Big Guns could really dish out a lot of it. Now, obviously, you might be concerned about chariots. But from the perspective of countering chariots, I think you're better off with an Ragnarok Queen or an Ragnarok Spider. I think those are just better options. You can always bring Squig Hoppers, which are a decent unit, just blocking them because they're immune to psychology. They do have AP damage. They're decent as a high mass blocker, or a decent mass blocker. Nasty Skulkers, of course, are brutal against chariots because they can snare them. My other critique, I would say the Goblin Big Boss is a bit wasted. I don't think he's really worth it. And finally, I'd also say Azag isn't really ideal. Azag has Spirit Leech, which sure, it's great. It's great if you need to deal with heroes. It can do some pressure against Minotaurs, but honestly, I don't think it's really worth it. So Spirit Leech, you can't Spirit Leech Morgr, who's by far the most likely pick. You can, but you're not going to get value out of it. You can Spirit... Kazrak and the Beast Lord are very rare and unlikely picks. And Malagor doesn't really give a damn if he's getting Spirit Leech, because ultimately his only value is from spamming spells. And so, as long as he's got some HP and he's able to prevent himself from routing, he's good. He's solid. So yeah, Azag can snipe these heroes. He can pressure them, but it's going to take him a while. As you saw there, the Spirit Leech game went on for ages between the Brave Shaman and Azag, and only ended because Azag dove in and got a nice cheeky pick. And if I had been a little more competent with my usage of my Shamans, my opponent would have gotten one Shaman kill and then been left with another Shaman, still able to spam spells, still able to drop Enfeebling Foe and Foe Seeker. And that was just a misplay on my part. So I think Wordsack's a better way to go, because Wordsack gives you some melee attack buffs. He gives you that constant, whenever he casts a spell, he gives you a Wah effect, or a mini Wah. And he's got Effigy at the Gate, which is huge. If you're struggling to stop a unit from rampaging through your line, it's a very useful trick. So, in my opinion, I'd probably ditch this Command Core, and I'd probably ditch the Trolls in favor of more Savage Orc Big Guns, to be honest. Maybe like a Nasty Skulker thrown in there. Because ultimately, these Chevrons aren't... Like, Chevron up Trolls, what is it? You're paying like 900 a pop here. That's literally 2 Big Guns that you could have on the field. Cut the Goblin Big Boss, cut Azag, trade him for Wordsack, cut the Big Boss, get a unit of Nasty Skulkers, and I think you're in a far better spot. The Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, they're an iffy pick, I think, but like I don't think they're terrible. There's a lot of squishy units that you can victimize with them. Normal Minotaur is definitely not bad. They can chip away at Razor Gores, they can chip away at Centaurs. Centaurs are great weapons. They can counter Centaurs with throwing axes, so I don't think they're a bad choice, and they're pretty cheap, so... Yeah, that's my main critique there. So, girls, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, be sure to leave them down below, and I will respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.